And we are live. It's Dr. J in the house with Daniel Hill. Daniel Hill's a regular guest on the show. We're excited to bring him back. Today, we're going to be diving into the topics of relationships, how to optimize your relationships, different techniques that you can use and strategies to make your relationships better and improve any conflict you're having and try to find your vision for an optimal relationship. All right, we're going to dive into today's topic. Daniel, how are we doing today, man?
Hello, sir. Very good. Very good. Always a pleasure to speak with you.
Excellent. Same here. And again, if anyone's listening, Daniel's over in the UK, England area, and we have his links right below in the podcast description. So if you guys want to reach out or dive in or get more support, Daniel sees patients worldwide. So that's an option for y'all. All right, Daniel. So you've been seeing patients 10, 15 years. What are the
18
biggest
and a
18?
half it is
Wow.
now.
There you go. What are the biggest obstacles that you see, just the average person coming up with, that's impacting their relationship and allowing it to not maybe thrive optimally?
Stress. We get stressed. We get triggered by other people. The biggest thing is unmet expectations. So we assume that our partner or whoever else we're speaking to, or whoever that other person is going to meet our needs. And we just unconsciously think that they're going to meet their needs because we're wired in such ways. Most people will get stressed and fed up at other people at times because they won't meet our needs. In fact, there's a great quote there's a wonderful book called The Wisdom of the Enneagram, which I love the Enneagram particularly, but there's a quote at the back of the book, and I think it's by a guy called Frank Andrews, and it said, "People will let you down, hurt you, and disappoint you, yet there are no other kinds of people." I remember that. So we've all got issues. We've all got our own challenges. But yeah, it's often that we'll find that the person's let us down. They've hurt us. They're disappointed us and let us down somehow.
100%. And so expectations are key, right? And so what do you think the best way, whatever that expectation is, whether it's emotional, whether it's physical, whether it's just the daily routines of life? I don't know who makes the bed, who cleans stuff. What's the best way to get on the same page? I mean, is it just literally talking about all the mundane, having a list of responsibilities? And again, obviously there's different kinds of relationships, right? There's husband and wife,
Sure.
or you're living in as a partner. That's totally different than as a girlfriend, boyfriend, not living in the same environment, or spouse, whatever, together at daily living or not. So how do what's your strategy kind of in getting on the same page?
Well, the biggest one is talking, but as best as you can, I've often said many times, have a heart to heart. The tendency will be you'll be in your head about the issue, and by being in your head, you will trigger the other person to be in their head. So you have a head to head, and that's like a fight, isn't it? We've just seen Jake Paul fight Mike Tyson, so it's a head to head between Jake Paul and Mike Tyson. Terrible fight. Anyway,
Now,
we won't
now,
go down. We won't
now,
go
when
down
you're
that road.
saying head to head, are you saying like I have my expectations in my head and I'm not bringing it out in front? I'm not communicating. I'm keeping it bottled up and I'm not putting it out there.
Yeah, I think most people will have, when your expectations aren't met, you're going to be in your ego. So you're going to be you're going to feel like you've not been respected, you've not been heard. But it may be that that's literally not true. The other person is away with the fairies in their own world, and they're struggling, and it's not their intention that you are now in this place of suffering because your needs aren't being met. It's virtually impossible. It's like being a parent. You're a parent. Are you going to be able to meet your parent? Are you going to be able to meet the needs of that child all of the time?
No.
100%. It's impossible. So it's always about being able to communicate as best as you can without being in a reactionary place where you question that other person's intention. So I'm feeling this now, and you're questioning, you made me feel this, you did that, you did
Right.
the other, and I'm now struggling. I'm now hurt. I'm now disappointed. I'm now let down, and very often it's not the intention of the other person to make you feel like that. Something like Ho'oponopono, which is quite simple, which is, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, and I love you. If you can use the framework of that, it'll certainly get you more into your heart, and you can communicate how you feel about what's happened. It does take courage in order to be able to do that, because we feel that we're going to potentially be hurt or let down again by that person. But you're more than likely going to make an impact if you come more from a place that's real and you're not being reactionary. So the biggest thing, which I would say, is pause. So you feel this emotion coming up inside of you, like pause. Second thing, is it their intention? Are they
Yep.
intentionally trying to make you feel like that? Maybe you are married to a narcissist, maybe, or a sociopath, psychopath, goodness knows what. But maybe they're just caught up in their own life at that moment in time with all that they're dealing with. Can you pause? Can you question? And can you, whatever question you get back, which might be a yes or a no, if it's, well, yes, I do think they've intentionally tried to hurt me. I do think this is an intention. Pause again on that. Is it absolutely 100% true, 100%, that it's their intention? Could it be that there's a slight bit of doubt in there that you go to, like, where, okay, perhaps it's not. Maybe there's a 1% chance. Maybe there's a 0.1% chance. Maybe there's a 50% chance. But if you can do that, that'll take you out of your ego again. And if you need to speak in that moment, then speak. Sometimes, we can't wait. But I often say, just take your time with it and wait. Go into the other room if you need to go into the other room. If you don't need to speak to the other person for a few days or a week, so be it. Take your time with it. Just let it be and let it be and be with it, because it might be that it triggers something deeply inside of you that actually that might need healing. That might be about you, not necessarily the other person. The other person might be doing this to all different types of people.
I think it's really easy when someone hurts you in a relationship, right? And you ascribe some kind of intent to it. And maybe there's zero intent behind it at all. Maybe you're being hypersensitive. Maybe they're being a little callous and abrasive and they could be better, right? And we come in with all this stuff, these preconceived notions. And I think one of the first things that I look at with any relationship issue is say, is it reasonable? Is my expectation reasonable for this person? Meaning, like, do they have to be a mind reader to fulfill the need that I have right now? Right? Is it just they were late for this date and I was very clear about time and they didn't give me a heads up? That's very clear. It's very objective, right? Most of the times we're not in this kind of clear boundary area
Yes,
where a
I'd agree with
boundary's
that.
been crossed, right? So it's not that clear. And so when it happens, we ascribe intent to it. We say, this person's doing this to hurt me, but maybe they're having a bad day. They're having an issue. And that just caused them to focus on this other issue. And then they were a little callous here because their emotional bandwidth was already low. And so I think you have to, I always say you have the glass half full or the glass half empty. The half empty mindset is you assume malintent. The glass half full is I assume that it was just a mistake. I'm going to give the person the benefit of the doubt that this is not an intentional thing. But then I look at it and say, okay, what do I want as the outcome here? Because I think most people, when they have any kind of disagreement, they don't think about what the actual outcome is. They get into it. They start to have discourse back and forth. It starts to get heated. They start to increase the intensity. But then in that emotion, they forget what the hell they wanted as an outcome to begin with. And
Yeah.
sometimes I think the biggest mistake people make when they go into any kind of a conflict is they try to be right. They try to win.
Yes.
Instead, I say, what is the outcome? Because action A happens, right? You respond with action B. You're feeling hurt or you do something. And you say, this person did this bad thing, right? But there may be an action before that predecessed that person from having action A, right? And so we have to look at how did everything manifest? How did it all come to be? And let's not come at it with preconceived notions. What do I want the outcome to be? And does my partner have to be a mind reader to meet that outcome? Maybe it's like disrespect. They're being disrespectful. They're being short with you. Okay. Is that reasonable? I think it's reasonable for sure. Right. But is there something else happening in the background? No, they don't have to be that mind reader. Let's say it's, I don't know, let's think of another task, another need that has to be met. Let's say you wanted to have flowers brought home for you today, and those flowers did not happen today, right? And you're getting mad because, hey, those flowers should happen today, right?
Hmm.
Well, of course, but it's not anniversary. It's not like a special occasion. So how would that person know that you needed flowers today, right? And so there's kind of I kind of look at everything holistically. Is there am I being reasonable with the expectation? Or if the expectation requires more communication, where's my role in saying, hey, I'm really having a bad week. It'd be awesome if we could do something extra special for me to kind of pull me up. Then we can meet that need. What are your thoughts on those two things?
Yes, I think there's insight there. One thing that was coming up, which was choose your time and when you're going to communicate your wishes, your what's important to you, and it's not always going to be in that moment if they have forgotten something or they've made a comment about something. It's I found that it's better to leave it until you find a better time where you can communicate that. So whether you're having a date night or whether let's say it's your boss and you wait until you get a moment where you can speak to your boss where it's kind of in a good place. If it's a sibling, similarly, it might not be appropriate if it's a wedding. Or it might take a while for that person to, maybe they've had a little bit of a drink before or after, or they've just been more in their heart. It's important to you're de-escalating where the trauma is, or where the stress is. It's like,
Yeah.
how many times do we get triggered, and we've all done this, and sort of we've been reactionary, and we've had all of our stress, and sort of like, how dare you do this, sort of like, you any idea what it's like? And the other person can be like, what on earth has triggered this person? Didn't even realize what it was. So the antithesis of that is like, okay, so don't react in that moment. Take some time. So if it's like, if the flowers thing, I was thinking sort of, yeah, no, if she's there thinking he's going to bring flowers after that, and you come to the door and there's no flowers, then if she's sort of like, it could be that, he's just forgotten. Something's happened, but he needs a prompt later on in the evening, or maybe the next day, or maybe the next time that you have something like, I don't know, you go out on a date night, or you are going for a meal. Something's happened, and it's there when that person's in their heart, and you can be in their heart. When you didn't bring me flowers last Thursday, I really felt upset, and I haven't said anything about it, but it would mean the world to me when you do. I don't know why I feel like that, but I love it when you bring flowers to me. It just makes me feel absolutely fabulous. And he might be going, so that's a gift, and we're going into 5 love languages here, but he might just be like, well, I didn't realize it meant that much to you. Oh my God. It was my dream as a little girl to sort of like, that my husband would be always romantic with me throughout the remainder of our lives. That I used to look at as a little girl at an old couple who lived down our road, and they used to go for a walk in the park, and they always used to hold hands. And I used to say to myself, when I grow up, that's what I want. Okay, all right. Well, so you'd like me to bring you flowers more and like hold my hand a little bit more? I would. It would mean the world to me. Really? Yeah. And that's a way of communicating your needs in that time, as opposed to exploding because he's forgotten to bring flowers one day.
Exactly. And so I look at everything. I try to boil it down to the essence. And you can take any of these analogies that we're giving, flowers or holding a door or being late for a date. We can apply it to anything in the relationship, right? I have this need. And so we can kind of talk about it, but Tony Robbins talks about the 6 unmet human needs. Well, let's kind of go through them right now, and then we can plug it into where these needs come from. But we have significance, right?
Yes.
Feeling important, right? So a lot of times when our spouse is reacting, a lot of times significance is a big deal.
Yes.
Right? They want to feel important, right? We have, is it communication, or is it, what's the next one? Is it?
It's love/connection. Love/connection.
Okay. So love/connection. So these are going to be the first 2, I would say, with most relationships. Then the next 2, I would say, are what a lot of
So,
long-term relationship couples have issues with, or married couples. Variety
correct.
and
Yeah.
a
Certainty.
stability, or
Stability, which would be
stability,
certainty.
right?
Yes. Yeah.
So you need, as a married couple, right? You need stability. You want to feel like that person's there. You can depend on them, but also you want the variety of, it's date night. Let's mix it up. Let's do
Yeah.
this. Let's have some
Yeah.
fun. It breaks up the monotony. So I find these four are the big ones when it comes to relationships. Then we have contribution. This is a charity, going out and donating time, coaching your kids' sports team. And then we have growth, which is improving ourselves, listening to an audiobook, going to church, having a nice conversation that is enlightening, right? So those are the big six. So we have, let's just kind of summarize it again. We have significance, we have love connection, we have variety, we have stability, we have contribution, we have growth. Those are the six big human needs. And when you look at your spouse, or you look at any person that you're having an issue with, I think it's the first four really follow into the relationship
Yes.
aspect. Do you
Yeah.
agree?
Absolutely. He often says, sort of, if you're not scoring, I think it's like an 8 out of 10 on all of those points, you're going to struggle in a relationship. And it's a way of actually building an affair-proof marriage, because why does anybody look elsewhere? And it'll be because their needs aren't being met. So, I mean, I've seen him do seminars and he said sort of like, but I gave her everything, I gave her everything. And he's like, well, clearly not.
Well, the hard part comes in, I think, when you look at any relationship is, let's go to the first human need. Let's go significance. That woman may feel significant by having a appreciation for picking up the home, making a nice meal, or going on a date, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that guy may feel significant by just having some physical intimacy. And so
Mm-hmm.
the problem is, what someone else equals, significance in their brain, the other person may have a different action to
It's
equal
going
that.
to be
And
almost
that's the hardest part.
Yeah,
That's the
it
hardest
is hard.
part,
Yes, yes.
right?
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
probably the hardest part. And this is where I think really dialing in and saying, hey, let's look at significance. Like, this is where having a good conversation, going on a date night, maybe you rubbing my feet, right? Maybe giving some flowers. And then that's where the connection kind of comes in. I think significance and connection, I think, are intertwined, right? Obviously,
Yes.
you need more time invested, I think, to feel connection, right?
Yes.
I can, give you some flowers. You may feel significant, but the connection probably isn't there as much. Versus if we have a nice conversation, there's probably or intimacy. That's going to work on the first and second kind of together. But I think each person may look at it a little bit differently, and it's really easy to say, well, this is what I need for this. Therefore, I'm going to carbon copy that onto you.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess where most couples kind of get into trouble.
I think most couples also don't communicate very well, and they will get to the difficult bits of where they need to make a breakthrough, and ego kicks in, because
Yes,
but you're not going to give me what I want, and you're not going to give me what I want, and that's where they struggle. So where I've had breakthroughs in relationships is sort of, one of the questions I've often said is, I wonder which one of you is going to be courageous enough to get into the heart first. Because I mean, I've worked with couples where, they've been having a go at one another for 40 minutes, or one will have a go more at the other one sometimes. And eventually they will go, all I want is for you to notice me and recognize me. And I'm like, look where their hand is. This is a different want. The want for the 40 minutes has been from here. Finally, when they can't get what they want, they kind of go to here. I mean, a man could do this as well, because he could just feel so, I don't know, henpecked, or so sort of put down, or goodness knows what. And he can be like, he can get into his heart. It doesn't mean that he will get sort of all like that, but he might just go, honey, what I really wish for us most of all, truly, is for us to have some peace and some deep connection, because I miss you, and I don't like fighting all the time. I loved it at the beginning, and I don't see why we can't get back to that place. I've often noticed just hands going to hearts. And then I started using the word wish in 2016 in my coaching practice, because I thought, that's a different want. That's a different want. It's communicated to the 40,000 neurons here, which are in the heart, not the 80 billion up here, which are about survival and getting their needs met all the time, and it, doesn't shut up. So, and that's powerful, because it's been a pattern interrupt in the fight that's going on in the communication. So if you can avoid the 40 minutes of aggro before you get to this place, which is, this is powerful, and this is soft, and this is love, this is fear. This often talks from this fearful place, angry place, all the things that the ego gets, preoccupied about, because it's about self. And there's a little child in there, there's a little boy, there's a little girl wanting to get their needs met, and we'll all be triggered at times. But how can you resolve that, and how can you come back from here? And I've resolved so many things in my own life with various people by coming from this place, and I coach clients to do the same.
Yes. So let me give a couple scenarios, right? So we talk about some of the needs. We talked about significance, number one, and connection.
Yep.
/ love, right?
Yep.
So the first thing is, what happens a lot of times is someone else is withholding that for that other person because they feel like that person needs to do it first.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem is, does the tail wag the dog, or does the dog wag the tail? Because as soon as that person gets what they want, they're more likely to be bathed in that oxytocin, have that patience, have that empathy for you, and then give you what you want. And so then if you withhold that and play this tit for tat game, then that person's probably not going to be able to meet your needs back. And so it's this kind of stalemate where everyone's digging in their heels. And this is, I think, the hardest part. And this is where I think people have to meet in the middle and say, we're both going to try to meet each other's needs at the same time. We're both going to just try. We're both going to blindly take that step down that staircase and do it at the same time together.
And that's maturity.
Yes.
And you will meet people in life who cannot get past their own needs. So it's a win-lose situation. It's like a war. No, I'm going to defeat you. I have to get my needs met, and then when I'm happy, then we can carry on and we can go fine. It's like, no. Those are really tough people to deal with. And it may be that coming from your heart sometimes is not enough, because that other person is going to see that as a weakness, and they're going to just manipulate and take advantage of that because they're not willing to go to their heart. They're not willing to go to that. All they're concerned about is meeting their needs. And I think they end up creating destructive relationships of all different kinds. So equally, sometimes it's the best thing to walk away from those relationships. And if you can't walk away, you become really careful about those people.
Well, my whole strategy with walking away is, if you have not mastered the ability to communicate and get your needs across and make it very clear, then you're probably going to just repeat that again with the next one. That's kind of my thing.
Absolutely.
So it's like, you need to make sure you've done everything in your, communicational skill set, or help people to support you in that skill set. If you don't have that skill, help someone work on that skill with you so you can help that make that point across. Because I tell patients that have relationship stress, because all the time relationship stress is an emotional stressor in that triad of health. It's the physical, right? Your body exercising too much or too little, or being in chronic pain. The chemical stressors, the food, the gluten, the inflammatory fatty acids, the gut dysbiosis, the leaky gut, the hormones, and then we have the emotional stress. And I look at things as, what's foundational? Because a lot of times you can get into granular topics and traumas, but let's just start with the foundational stuff. And so, for instance, we talk about needs. Make a list, because there's going to be certain needs that only your partner can fulfill, and there's certain needs that only you can fulfill, i.e., you need to make a choice to put water and electrolytes in your body. You need to choose eating 2 to 3 really good meals a day. You need to choose getting to sleep. You need to choose getting some movement and doing something you enjoy physically with your body. Because if you don't do those things, when you go to your husband or your partner, you're going to require more of them to fill you up, because you depleted yourself so much on the other side.
Wow.
And so that's where codependency happens, where it's like, I'm going to take all the needs that I have responsibility for. I'm not going to do those, but I'm going to go to the other person and say, fill me up more, because I depleted myself down here. And so I say, make that line. What's that list? What are the things you have control over for your needs? That changes your physiology, your biochemistry, and your energy, where then you can now communicate and bring more to your partner, and then vice versa for them. Because there's going to be, we need date nights. We need to go have meaningful conversation and touch and intimacy. We need to, talk about our shared vision for our family or our relationship, or our shared vision for our home and how we live, and maybe charitable giving, how you're going to impact your community, how you're going to impact your church, right? This is all going to kind of require that connection and all those 6 human need things, right? What do you think about that?
I'm 100% with you. I mean, we've riffed about this before. We've talked about these kind of subjects. I always struggle to sort of know what to do when you get on one, when you're doing this, I'm going, God, he should be doing the interview, not me.
Well, we just go ahead.
Well, it's because you've got a lot of experience there, and I think. I mean, I was going to bring in the 5 love languages, and I'm thinking, that we don't really need to cover that much.
But if you want, go ahead.
Well, no, you asked me a specific question about that, because all I can say is a lot of the time is I 100% agree. Yes. And I become an audience member when I'm speaking to you.
Well, so here's one thing you taught me that I think is really important, because we talk about relationships all the time, because I try to be coached in it because I'm dealing with patient stuff all the time. One of the easiest things is, you mentioned it earlier. You talked about using the word wish.
Right.
So imagine you have a need in a relationship. Let's just give a simple need, right? I'll give an example from my past, right? My wife wanted me to open the door for her. I always open the door for my wife, but there's sometimes I don't, because I feel like a chauffeur. Yes. And I want it to feel special. And if I'm always doing it, then it's in the realm of it's too dependent upon. Now I'm the chauffeur, not the loving husband, right? And so, okay, we're not going to do it. My wife wanted me to open the door that night. Now, she kind of came at it, was more of I felt like, why didn't you do this? I can't believe you didn't do this. And the thing that Daniel's always taught me is, you can say, why didn't you? How dare you? Right? I'm not saying that's what she said, but it feels like that, versus, I wish to have this. It would be so nice. I would wish to experience this. This would make me feel so good. There's a different energy when you communicate something in I want this versus I wish to have this.
And it's heartfelt. It's real. It's true.
And you feel, as the person that's trying to meet that need, you're like, man, I do it all the time. Why can't you just appreciate every time I do it versus not? Versus if someone says, I really wish, oh, okay, got it. I can make your wish happen. I can be that person to make the wish happen, right?
Absolutely.
It's like you want to rise to the occasion, versus the other one, you kind of feel like you let that person down. And I think the words you use helps that other person meet your needs in the middle.
I like the word wish particularly, and I've said this to Justin before. And it does take a while to get out of your consciousness and begin to remember time and time and time again. So if you think about it in a relationship, if the wife, let's say in a heterosexual relationship, let's say your wife starts using that word wish more, you then become, you're then the genie, you're then the magician. And how much significance would you get as a man meeting the wishes of your partner by doing it? And she communicates what her wishes are, and you go out. Right. So you become a 10 out of 10 because you're like, I've done this in my own relationships, but you feel like 7 foot tall as a man. You're like,
yes,
I am meeting the needs of my partner, like 10 out of 10. It makes you feel fabulous. The amount of guys I've seen over time who are like, oh my God, I give her everything. I do this and I do that and do that. And they're exhausted. Similarly for a woman, it can be just like, but I've tried everything. What do I do? What do I do? So just think about like, this person has made a commitment to being with you. And most likely if you're getting into that kind of, a challenging part in your life or a relationship, or it's, you need to work on it. You need to continue to communicate, but just simply using that one word will entice the other person. Think about it when we were a child. Where's wish come from? There's 3 things. The Aladdin, there's the genie and the lamp.
Yep.
There's there's the dandelion clock. I don't know if you do this in the States, but the dandelion clock, and you blow the dandelion clock to make the wish.
Mm.
Yeah. And it was going, I thought of another one. Going to a well and throwing a penny in, something like that. There's places where you can throw pennies in. And the fourth one, birthday cake. Close your eyes and make a wish. Why is it that when we grow up, we forget about doing all of that? With the thing with wish is that a wish within a child's language and a child's psychology, there aren't limitations. So if the child says, "What do you wish to be when you grow up?" and the child goes, "I wish to be an astronaut," we don't go, "Oh yeah, come on, what astronauts come from such and such?" There's no limitation. What do you wish? What would you wish to experience? I wish to grow up to live in a big house, and I wish to and he live in a big house and drive a Rolls Royce. And his father, when he used to go to bed at night, used to hypnotize him. And he would say, just as he was falling asleep, "You're going to live in a lovely mansion one day and you're going to drive a Rolls Royce." And he did actually he ended up doing it. He's just passed away, bless him. He was 75 years old. But all these things, it's like, why should the magic of childhood curtail at adulthood? And that's where it becomes playful. NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. So neuro, brain, linguistic, language, programming. So programming or conditioning. Just that one word, if you begin to use that in so many different ways with yourself and with other people, just explore the magic that goes on behind it, because words have the ability to heal and break up, cause conflict, cause problems. Think about it. And it's much more in relation to an outcome. Why? When we're talking about wish, what are you doing when you close your eyes? You're going to your outcome, imagining it's there. Make a wish. Dandelion clock, penny in the well. What were the four? Aladdin and the wishes. So birthday cake, yeah. I'm sure there were others as well, but language is extraordinarily powerful. You can use the word love, and you can use the word cherish, and you can use the word adore, and if you look into your partner's eyes, if we're doing sort of couples therapy, as opposed to, you could just say, "Oh yeah, I love you," but you could actually go over and place your hand over your partner's heart center and look at them directly in the eye and go, "I love you." There's a difference. We've just said, "I love you," but "I love you." We're saying the same words, but they have totally different meanings. So it's also how we're saying things, and how many people do that in your life. Does your partner do that to you? If you think about certainty, if you look at your partner and go to that intimate place, sort of in the heart chakra, in the heart area, "I love you."
Well, that requires undivided attention. That means the phones can't be out, the kids can't be running around,
Takes 2 seconds.
TV can't be on, but it takes undivided attention.
Undivided
attention.
It does, but it's possible. It could be like you get up and you literally just go, "I love you." Something like, people think that these things require a lot of effort, like the flowers doesn't require a lot of effort. You go to the supermarket and you're getting a few things and you go, flowers, right, okay, and you've sorted that. But I think if we talk about relationships with spouses, that I think these things over time get less and less and less and less and less and less and less. But equally, you can, work towards the manifestation of a great relationship by going up and up and up. I think I told you I met a guy in the last few years, and he's 77 years old, I think now. Is he 78? They've been married for, I think it's 35 years. It was his second marriage. Totally in love with his wife. And I say, "So, that's great, fabulous. How does that work?" And he goes, "Communication, my friend. We talk and talk and talk, but I love her. I absolutely love her. So he's 77 and she's 71. And, they've worked at that relationship, and it's communication. He said that if you put the amount of time that we've spent talking about things, he said it would be tens of thousands of hours. But he said it's the thing that's got us through. That we do talk, and a lot of relationships don't. They won't talk. They won't talk to that degree. They won't communicate their needs, and they'll carry on, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, and just hopefully it will get better. But you end up becoming effectively like roommates. But you're not in a sort of deep, loving relationship with your spouse. You're just you know
Well, especially when you have
sharing the
kids,
house
because
together.
now
Yeah.
you have your needs, right? Which is eating, moving, doing things that you enjoy. Maybe it's working too, and then you have these other little beings that are around the home that are never full. They always want to take, 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 take. They very rarely say, "Hey, Dad, you did enough for me today outside playing or getting me this food. Why don't you go have
Yes.
some quality time
With
with
mum.
mom?" It never happens. It's just like more and more and more and more and more. And so as a parent, it's exponentially harder because you have to have a boundary. You both have to have boundaries, because if you as the mom have a boundary but the dad doesn't, and then the dad's cup's empty, then how do you meet later on and try to fill each other up? You can't.
Yeah.
And that's, so
Yeah.
there's like relationships without kids, much easier. It's still hard though. It's still very hard. But then you with kids, now there's more pulls, there's more guilt if you don't do certain things. And then are you able to keep your cups a little bit full so you can give to each other? Or do you equally or unilaterally deplete those cups and then don't have a lot to give? And that's the hard part.
Yeah. I think if you can become aware of like those six human needs that you've talked about,
Mhm.
and let's talk about also the negative part of it. So like, how many people in relationships then start them becoming unhealthy, and they'll meet their need for significance in an unhealthy way? How many times will they make their need for certainty in an unhealthy way? Love connection, you can meet that. I guess, well, it wouldn't be love, but it would be connection in an unhealthy way, sort of a way of attempting to put someone down and keeping them around the home, not letting them out to go and do anything, so they've got connection. And then you throw in a bit of unhealthy variety as well, but you're not going to meet your needs for growth and contribution. And there's also, I think it is worthy of talking about quite simply, like the five love languages in relationships.
Which plug into that, right? Which plug
They do
into the
plug.
significance,
We talked about it before. We're like the
connection.
males.
Mhm.
Males will probably go for the Robin's sort of six human needs. Women will probably prefer
Yes.
the dynamic of the five love languages. But it's still worthy of covering if you've never heard of it before. So you've got gifts. I remember it alphabetically. Then you've got he says gifts, physical touch, quality time, words of affirmation. I've missed one, haven't I? Usually good with this.
Acts of service.
Acts. I missed the first one. Acts of service. Acts of service is doing things. It's some. I've done this for 18 and a half years. So sometimes you ask clients, sort of about relationships, and they'll just sort of, it's quite clear. It's acts of service. That's how they, he didn't take the bin out. He didn't do this. He didn't service the car. He didn't do that. He didn't do the other. It's very important. So acts of service, gifts, yeah, physical touch, quality time, and words of affirmation.
And here's why I like Robin's love. That's where I like the Robin's needs better, because you have the need, and then here's the action to fulfill the need. So I look at the five love languages, the action, but what need is it scratching, right? So if you kind of go back, right, most of these are gonna, you have significance, you have importance, right? Physical touch will make someone feel important,
Yep.
probably more men than female, but it can change. Then you have acts of service. That's making your spouse a coffee in the morning. That could be variety, right? Adding in something different. It could
Yep.
also be connection and significance. So you could hit three of those human needs right there. Gifts as well. Gifts kind of hit into that same realm.
Yep.
Quality of time, significance, connection.
Yep.
That's going to be date night.
Yep.
And let's see here, gifts. And then we have acts of service. That's going to be the same thing. Physical. Yeah. So I think we hit all the big ones. And so the love language is the outcome. but then you have the need here. So this is the need. How do we fulfill that need? How do we scratch that need? And so that's where I find men tend to want more intimacy and respect. Women want more love, appreciation, quality time. And maybe you could throw some of the gifts in there. I think that's on average. And again, everyone's going to be a
They
little
are
bit different.
different.
That's what I see. Men tend to be more respect driven. Women tend to be more love and appreciation driven and quality time driven.
Yes, and there's an interesting thing, and the one is that when men do get that physical intimacy, and it doesn't always mean sex, but it can do. But when we get that physical intimacy and sex, if that's as well, then we want to do more for our spouse.
Yes.
It's the other way around with women, that if you do these things for me, then I'll give you the physical intimacy.
And that's the problem with the sex. That's where it gets so hard in regards to this tit for tat game that happens.
It does happen, and and the woman, I've seen it countless times where the woman will tell me, "Oh, he's not having sex with me." No. So she's withdrawn that from him. So because until he gets this stuff done, then I'll come back in here. But he feels so depleted. There's obviously a number of issues going on already in the relationship, but because he's not getting his needs met, then he's got to give in order to be able to get. So I think if you can understand, go on.
So it's like the same thing. If we look at it in reverse, well, I'm not getting the intimacy, therefore I'm going to withhold quality of time and not date nights.
Yeah.
And then it's like, well, then the person didn't get the quality time, then therefore they don't want intimacy. And so it's this vicious cycle.
It is a vicious cycle.
Like, you have to look at it and say it's a positive feedback loop. The more I give, the more everyone gives back, right? And so you just have to stop with the games and just give out of abundance versus give out of this need to receive, or receive first, then you give. That's the game that has to stop. It's the hardest thing, and you say it all the time, Daniel. You say get out of your head, the ego, right? That's usually an ego thing driving it, and you have to be able to step out of your head and out of that ego game.
Yeah, it's a paradox, because the more that you do, the more that you'll get what you want. The ego doesn't believe in that whatsoever. It's not interested in that paradigm.
Correct.
But if you do it the other way around, you will get more of what you want. But you have to, I would even say, like, sometimes I say to clients, look, just try it. But I don't like the word try because of how it's like in the nervous system, how it's wired but it's like trying cheese or trying wine or trying a new experience. So, but it's the invitation to, look, you've tried getting what you want this way and it clearly doesn't work. Can you agree with me on that? And most usually, eventually they'll go, well, yeah, so what are you suggesting? And I'm suggesting this. And if you could go and find what the needs are in this partner and you fill them up in best ways possible, they're more than likely going to wish to give back to you. And I use the word wish rather than want to get back to you, because you'll have made them so loved. They'll feel so secure, so that you've got significance, love connection, what's the one? Significance, love connection, certainty, and a bit of variety. The other partner's going to feel so in their heart. They're going to think, wow, it's almost like this is a new relationship. And this often happens, where people go from relationship to relationship. And, at the beginning of most relationships, how significant do you feel? Amazing. It's like you walk in the room, they're like, oh, hi.
But here's the reason why. The variety is so high, the newness is so high that you are producing so much GABA, so much dopamine, so much adrenaline that any negative behavior that you see from that person, your neurotransmitters are so dampened you don't even see it, you don't even feel it. Where when that newness, that variety becomes more in that certainty realm, right? It's there, right? Yeah. Everyone has that great first new car they have, they love it. And 10 years later, you still love it, you still appreciate it, but it's not going to hit you the same way you had your first ride in it, because the neurotransmitters from that newness bathe your brain and you don't see things the same way.
Yeah.
And so it's important to know that. And so when you look at the human needs, that's where bringing variety back out through date nights and doing different things that break you out of the monotony is so important, because in the beginning, that was just the highest thing. right?
Yeah.
And then the significant and the connection was so high because everything was so fresh. And so when you know that, then you can come in and say, you know, are you having a date night? Are you having enough time away from your routine? And what you see with most couples that have been married 5, 10 years plus, and then you add kids in, that need is just totally there. And then when that need is not scratched, then usually the intimacy isn't scratched because you start to feel like your roommate, right? And roommates just kind of get into the habit of dealing with the home and the kids and all the stressors, and everyone's cup's empty at the end of the night.
Yeah. It's a challenge. It's a big challenge. Communicate, just communicate. Let's boil it down. We've talked about quite a number of things. Come from your heart. Come from your heart. If you have to place your hand here when you're talking to remind yourself to come from your 40,000 neurons here. There's power here. Think of power here and force here. Force. I want you to do what I want you to do. Power.
I want to win the conversation. I want to win. No. I wish to have this. I wish to experience this. What do you wish to experience?
Yeah, absolutely. That's nice. I like that. Double wish. So come from that
I think
place.
it's good to assume. It's good to not assume that you're fulfilling all that person's needs, that their cup's totally full, but it's just yours that's empty too, right? So I think it's good to be like, to get out of that headspace that, hey, maybe your spouse feels something similar to you.
Do you know what? When you just said that, I just imagine you talking to your children. I don't know why. Have you ever said that to your kids? Sort of like, I wonder if that's, because we're talking about relationships. I mean, the idea was we were going to talk about relationships of all different kinds, and what we've got in is spousal relationships. But often, what's one of the biggest stresses? It's kids, It's people come into my coaching practice and it's like the stress that's going on in their life is kids. I can't talk to my child. The child's not listening to me, kids. So I still think you could use that with children.
Oh, totally.
What is it that you wish? They're in that place, they're in that place where, they're still blowing out the candles for their birthdays, still making wishes. So,
totally.
So, something like that can massively help. What else have we covered?
So I want to get to the EFT and your NLP of how you would use that, but I want to just right, like let's kind of like, all right, here's the checklist. I like checklists to say, okay, you're either on track or off track, right? And so first track is, what needs are you needing your partner to meet, and what needs do you need to make yourself meet? Because if you are not meeting your needs, you are more than likely going to need more from your partner, and this is where codependency happens. Right? Codependency is, my cup's so empty over here. I need you to do more, and I need to be more connected to you because my needs aren't being met by me. Okay. So the first thing is look at your needs: food, water, sleep, movement, doing something you enjoy. And then you can bring that cup that's full to your partner and vice versa. Number 2, get clear on what it is you want. Do not come at it from your partner of, you're not doing this. Don't browbeat them. Use the word, like Daniel said, out of your head into your heart. I wish to experience these things. And when you're having your partner's doing something that you don't like, come at it from glass half full. The person is not having this intent to do me ill harm. There's probably something else happening here. And I'm going to give them the best possible benefit of the doubt, favoring them. And that allows you to come from the wish place. If you come at it as they're intentionally hurting me, it's hard to come from a wish place. You're going to come from how dare you. You're going to come from the victimhood. You're going to come from the entire, I deserve this. It's like, no, step out of that, step out of your head into your heart, give them the glass is half full, benefit of the doubt, and then you can use the word wish versus browbeat them. And then after that, and then understand the 6 human needs. Go ahead, Daniel. Go ahead.
I think this comes from the Institute of Heart Math. I'm not 100% sure on that, but it was placing your hand over your heart and taking a full, deep diaphragmatic breath in. And breathe out for longer than you breathe in. Now to work. And I feel a little calmer yet again. It'll take you more into the heart space. So you don't have to, sit there with your partner, right, we're going to have a chat. But just notice that actually by breathing into your heart, you're connecting more to here. I can remember back in the day when I was doing EFT training, so I started in 2006. I furthered it in 2007, furthered it even more in 2008. I can remember working with an EFT master and him working through various trauma with somebody. And it was a way of getting further into releasing the trauma, which was, always remember him saying, and take a tapping, and take a breath into your heart space, or take a deep breath into your heart. So you're tapping, you're using all these kind of the various tools, whether it's eye movement as well. Breathe into your heart, release and let go. Notice you're going to be coming more from a grounded place. You're more in your body, you're less in your head, you're more in your heart. There's more of an awareness of something has shifted in this moment. I feel I'm letting go of something. I think it might come from the Institute of Heart Math, but there's going to be a huge amount of discovery, I'm sure, over the next century of what's in here. That this is more than just an organ that beats blood around the body. Why do we say follow your heart? Why do we say listen to your heart? This has gone on through centuries, millennia. There's something true and real about this when we're communicating. And why is it that when we're vulnerable and we get exhausted, and we just want to be heard, does this hand or that hand usually kind of come up here? Or if, like, let's say something happens and it's a wonderful thing and oh wow, thank you, wow, thanks, yes. Wow, how does that happen? No one tells anybody to do that. Why? Because there's something going on here. So the more that we can communicate from this place, this magical place, sacred. There's something else as well. There's a number of where people greet one another around the world.
Yeah, like Japan, like a bow.
Right. Why do the hands go anywhere near the heart? It's a sacred thing. There's something with Native American Indians, and I think there's something. Where else is it? There was something there were three things that I found. I wrote a song a long time ago. It was called In Lakesh Alakin. It was the Mayans as well. So the Mayans had a greeting, and it was around the heart center, because this was known as a sacred territory. It's sacred. It's like, why, it's only when we get close and intimate with people do we then let them into our heart. But the heart feels like it's got to protect itself, because, we're afraid of being hurt again. But again, it's a paradox. If you're always closed-hearted, you'll be in your head and you'll be trying to get what you want at a head level. But actually what it is that you deeply wish is to experience deep connection with others, to experience something true, to experience something real and authentic that we know means something, and it feels alive, and it feels real. It feels loving, and we're building connection here. Often I've heard it said sort of like with addiction. Addiction at the end of the day really is about disconnection. We feel this deep sense of disconnection. And love in itself is the most connective thing. When the mother or even the father goes to the child and hugs the child, if the child is in a place where they don't feel resourceful, it triggers the parasympathetic. So we feel loved. So love is the antithesis of that fear. And that helps us to then feel more secure in the moment and to process these things that we go through as children. So again, it's to do with heart. It's to do with love. And from this place, you can move mountains, literally. You can do incredible things. There's an awful lot of healing that's been done, in my life and with clients' lives when I've coached them to do this. There's something just powerful and the word is magical. And maybe that's, with the wizard and the wish and magic, and it's all entwined, we know it all, really.
Yep. So I wanted to kind of dive into some of the NLP and EFT techniques. I think the first thing is understand the human six needs. Understand what they are.
Yep.
Significance, connection. So significance, right? Connection, love/connection, variety, stability, certainty, right? And then the other ones are as you go up the hierarchy of needs, Maslow hierarchy of needs, that's where contribution and then growth, being a better person come. But it's the first four that are the foundation. Figure out what
Yes.
those four are and say, hey, how am I going to work on me? And then how am I going to fill my cup up so I can help fulfill my partner's needs? That's the first
And
thing.
maybe even rate them out of 10 as well, because then that gives you an idea, sort of like, how significant do you feel in general. And you can do this with your partner as well. You might not like the answers, but then you're going to find a way of being able to sort of go, okay, there's an imbalance here. And then
Yes.
also, which is the most important? Like, for some people it's going to be certainty, for other people it's
Yep.
going to be significance, for other people it's going to be variety, and for other people it's going to be love/connection.
Yes. And my kind of general theory is you should not end a relationship unless the other person is 100% dead set on not willing to help meet in the middle and fulfill those
Right.
needs together.
Yes.
That's
Of
where,
all
because in
of
the end,
all
because
kinds. Of all
because in the
kinds.
end, if you are doing a poor job communicating that, then that's going to just happen again and again and again and again, and you'll be stuck in this victim loop, right? And so it's like, take accountability, what you have control over. All you can do is control in the most, is how you communicate in the most loving, persuasive, from a heart space, not a head space way, and then make sure you fulfill the needs that you can on your side, so then your cup's more full
Yeah.
to meet the other partner. I think that's the first thing. The second thing I want to highlight is the EFT component, because there are habits that we all have with our partner where we get triggered. We go from a 0 out of 10 to like calm, relaxed, to a 10 out of 10, where we're flipping out, we're mad, we're yelling, right?
Yeah.
And I see some of the tools with EFT, and then we can go into NLP, because I want to see how you plug that in, where these tools can help prevent that reactionary response and get you more into that parasympathetic, relaxed, calm space versus that, out of control sympathetic space. So how do you implement? Let's just give just a general scenario. Let's make one up on the spot of a situation and
Yep.
how you would address that.
Okay. So someone's coming in with an issue, and
What's the issue?
Okay. So what is? Well, let's come up with one then. So what regards relationship? He's working too much. Let's go to that.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say he's working too much, and he doesn't really think there's much of an issue, but he's working too much, and she's most likely going to meet that it's going to be certainty, because he's not there enough. He said he was going to be there at the start of the relationship. Yep. He's not. He's now finding work more significant than her, so she doesn't feel so significant anymore. There's less time. He's more tired, so there's not that much variety in their life. What's the other one? There's less connection, and there doesn't feel love, because maybe she's got quality time is quite high for her, and he's coming back and he's shattered. But he thinks he's doing the right thing, because a lot of men will do this. I go out and provide. Neanderthal man goes out to the forest, and he comes back and he goes, look, I have provided. I'm good. I'm a good husband, surely.
So when you look at his checklist, he's saying providing, significance. I am providing that. I am significant because I am providing for my family.
Yep.
Yet the other person's looking at it as the opposite. I feel insignificant because I'm missing this connection, love, quality time aspect.
Yes.
Right. And so there's this, and this is where, when we have diametrically opposed values, where my action creates this outcome, I feel here, but at the same standpoint, as I'm here with my contribution connection, you're here.
Yeah. So
that's
where
tough.
you would, and that's a very common one, I think, partly because we are, this brain is 2 million years old, and, really only in the last few thousand years have we lived like the way that we do. We've often just had to be, so we've been hunter-gatherers for such a long time. So that is still part of the thing that's sort of deeply inside of us. Even if the woman is more masculine in her energy, she's still going to have, and she can go out and be a hunter-gatherer herself. There's still some part of her that, is feminine deeply inside, that wishes to have that intimacy and that quality time. He might just not really get that. He might think quality time is sitting next to her on the sofa while we're watching TV, but then he gets out his phone and he's scrolling, and she's like going, he might as well be out with his mates. He might as well be at work.
And the hard part in this whole thing is, early on, when everything's so fresh and new, a lot of these quality time things just happen spontaneously. You're like doing this, but then when you're in this long-term relationship, that this is where it's tough, because I find a lot of times the women wants it to happen spontaneously, but in reality of where the relationship's at, it's probably going to have to be scheduled. Like, if it's not scheduled, odds are it probably won't happen, and that's okay. It doesn't negate the fact that you want to have it spontaneously. It's like, I would love to spontaneously just work out randomly throughout the day, but it's probably not going to happen unless I put it on my calendar at a
Right.
certain time. Right. And
Yeah.
so it's like, if it's important, you just have to say schedule it. I think that's where a lot of the Disney stuff is kind of
I
programmed
was going to use the
people.
word Disney. Yeah.
It's programmed people to have unrealistic expectations,
Expectations.
especially once you put kids in the mix. Forget if you're not scheduling that, the odds
Yeah.
that you're going to have a random nice date at home with kids around, if you don't schedule it and have a sitter, it's just not going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. I think if there are slight cracks at the beginning of a relationship, when you add children into that mix, you are going to get sometimes vast chasms. And we were fine, and then you can be resentful towards the child for having the child come along. Well, the man could be, because the woman might feel more, she's going to get more unconditional love and significance from her child, so then the child becomes more important than the man. And I mean, I've seen that before, where sort of like, well, we were doing fine until we had our firstborn. And then it triggers him. I don't get as much variety with her anymore. We don't get this. I don't get significance. We're not growing anymore. There's no contribution. Yeah, it's kind of, and they carry on. They just carry on.
This is where it's also really important, where you have to be rational. You have to look at things and say, well, is my husband working 80 hours a week? And maybe that's unreasonable. Maybe he can get down to 60, or maybe he's working 40, but you still want more, right? And you have to look at it and say, what's reasonable? If you married a surgeon, the idea that he's going to work a straight 9 to 5 is probably unreasonable, right? And so that maybe was something that you didn't look at realistically before you started the relationship. Or number 2 is maybe we just plan more vacations. Like we're gonna make up for more quality times on Sunday, or more quality time through more vacations throughout the year, and that's where the negotiation comes in. But you got to be realistic. Especially, we're all in different phases of our life. If we have debt, we may work more to knock down the debt. We may be starting a business, and that may require more hustle time. And so you got to look at it and say, what phase in life are you? And then how can we make up for it with off days or vacations to kind of work on filling that cup up, or date nights?
Work as a team as well. Recognize, go back to, if you've got married, go back to the time of when you made the decision to be joined with this person. You go through, everybody's vows are different, but it used to be in sickness and in health. There's one regarding money as well. In I can't remember
rich
what
or
poor. Okay,
yeah.
Okay. So all those things, but
bad,
often what happens is like reality. And it's like, hang on, we've got reality here going on. I thought it was going to be this Disney show. I married into what I thought was heaven, and I've come to this place of hell. I mean, I've spoken to a number of guys, and there's a small percentage who are actually really quite happily married, and that they are quite a small percentage. And I would say those people communicate. It's the biggest thing. I remember I went to a big Polish wedding 10 years ago. I had a Polish girlfriend, and fabulous woman, fabulous culture, and I really enjoyed it. We're over in Poland, and she came up to us and she said, I have the recipe for you. And I said, oh, okay. Yeah. She goes, this will make the relationship work. And she said 3 things: communication, communication, and communication. And she was happily married in her 60s. And I think people struggle with communication, and we come all the way back down to sort of almost like where we started, which is, why do people struggle with communication?
But I want to interject
expectations.
That, right? Yeah, but also the communication is, you're not doing this, you need to do this.
Yeah, but that's exactly,
hey,
yeah.
Right, but hey, I wish to have this. It would be great.
Yep.
What also do you want, right? Both are forms of communication, right? Both are forms. And so the question is, which level of communication is going to allow you to connect with that person and not trigger them and not put their fight or flight in, right? So it's all about, how can we do it in a respectful way that's not going to trigger the other person. And so when we talk about triggering, let's hit the EFT stuff. So how do we have these habits, our spouses trigger us? How are we working on keeping ourselves parasympathetic now?
Well, know what your trigger points are. You might well need to go away if you're triggered by your partner, and you have some space and time.
It's taking out the trash. It's taking out the trash. She,
yeah, you
the
feel
trash didn't get taken out. You didn't do it. I can't believe you, right? You're triggered. Oh, why don't you take out the trash, right? Okay, let's just do that as a scenario.
Okay. Yeah. So, but take yourself away from that situation. Calm down. Put your hand over your heart. Take a deep breath in. Release and let go. Why? Because it does trigger the parasympathetic, and it also helps us to relax, and you're also getting more into your heart of what's true and what's real there. But you might not feel as relaxed as you wish. Just tap the top of your head, and you can just, let out something either in your mind, or let it out, if that partner isn't around. But just these points, 7, 10, 15 times, something like that. Just tap. Just keep it as simple as possible. Now, under the eye, it's a good one for anxiety. We've got top lip, which is to do with, I think it's shame, chin point, embarrassment. And this is another one, good, stress point. And another really good one underneath. You might just do that, and that might just be enough. But you could do that a few times. Regulate with the breath as well. Breathing in, I'm now breathing in, releasing and letting go. Again, if you can breathe into your heart while you're doing any of this, it will help trigger the parasympathetic. It just help you calm down. It's getting you back into that place where you were maybe 5 minutes ago or 2 minutes ago before something happened. You'll have a different response after doing this, because you're going to start to think more laterally or wider. When we're in our ego, we're like a racehorse. We're blinkered. We can only think that person has intentionally harmed us, or something's happened.
And as we get our sympathetics down, this is when you're in this flooded state, that adrenaline dump shuts down your frontal cortex. This is where rational thinking comes from. This is where outcomes come from. This is if we're not having the frontal cortex and we're working on our brainstem and adrenaline, this is where we're going to yell. This is where we're going to break the plates. This is where domestic violence can happen if we're overly sympathetic. So this is why always just walk away from a fight if there's overly stress, because that means you're not 100%. Using this part of the brain. Yes. They're not using this part of the brain, and therefore you're not going to have a solution that's going to work. And so this is where these techniques, you walk away, you calm everything down. It takes at least 20 to 30 minutes for an adrenaline dump to leave your body. So that's minimum amount of time. Could be longer, but go ahead.
So take that time, take as long as you need, but you'll always come back into the place calmer. But understand what was the trigger point, what was said, and then what does that mean? What do you think, what is the, if someone says something to you or doesn't say something, or what is it? What is the exact trigger point? What's the thing? What is the thing? So there's going to be an emotion. There's going to be the thing, and there's the emotion. So it's like, I very much doubt it's, I got triggered because they didn't take the bins out or the trash out. So, but let's just use that as an example. So I'm angry. I'm really angry they didn't take the trash out. Okay. So, and that means that they don't love me. Wired into someone's brain. Okay, this is a bit of a ridiculous one, but let's just use it as an example. So it means they don't love me. Why? Because that is an act of service wired into that person's brain, and it was more than likely that the taking out the trash was the straw that broke the camel's back. It's more the fact that they didn't do this and they didn't do that and didn't do the other. And then you've just said, Dave, can you just take the trash out at the end of the night? Yeah, fine, whatever. And you come back in and trash is not there, and they've got to walk, I don't know, 2 minutes up out, a minute out the drive to go and put it in, come back in, put the shoes on, whatever. And it's just, it triggers them in that moment because it makes them feel unloved. It makes them feel, so what is the word? Unloved. What is the word? What is the feel? I feel unloved. I feel disrespected. I feel unheard. I feel taken advantage of. I do all of this stuff for Dave, and all he's got to do is take out the trash. But there's a lot more than that that's going on. So
and when you approach your spouse and when you're talking about these things, the biggest mistake I think when people communicate, they communicate using attack words.
Yes.
I am mad at you because you were such a jerk. You were so, I don't know, selfish here. You were this or that. It's like, I am so hurt. I am so mad about this. I am so sad about this. I am so glad about.
That's
you talk about the emotions that you're feeling without using words that attack them. Because if they are attacked, then they go on the rebound, and then you're never going to be able to find peace in it, because now each person feels like they have to defend themselves because now
Yeah.
this person's attacked, and that wasn't my intention. I wasn't intending this, but they're saying my intention was this, and that makes me feel sad because now that wasn't my intention. And so then you're creating a sub fight. You're creating a meta fight under the actual fight. The
Yeah.
initial fight was the garbage, and now we're talking about the attacking words. That's now the meta fight, and that's where these like conversations and conflicts, you get into a fight, and then you're in a meta fight of the meta fight of the meta fight, and that's
Yeah.
where it's just like, wow, that's
And
where you
how often
gotta be very
and
careful.
how yeah, how often are these things like, well, we broke up because they didn't take the trash out, we got divorced,
It's
well,
like,
why did you get divorced? Well, you didn't take the trash out in the end. That was the straw that broke the camel's back.
right,
So a meta fight, is that what you said? A meta fight?
yeah, it's a meta fight,
Yeah.
and then also then it's like, then you also did this. Oh, whoa, whoa, whoa. No, we're going to talk about one thing. We're not going to do a meta fight of the meta fight of the meta fight, and that's where people get into these conversations and they feel absolutely depleted at the end, and they're like,
Yes.
what were we talking about? What was the, because they just get down this rabbit hole,
Yeah.
and that is
And
so stressful.
and I think it's one of those things that it's the straw that broke the camel's back, that there are so many things that person maybe hasn't done over time. I remember reading a book, I think it was called His Needs, Her Needs, How to Build an Affair-Proof Marriage. I remember reading that 10 years ago, and I can't remember it fully, but he said there's like 10 needs, and the 10 needs are, ranked for between a woman and a man. And he often says that, I think you said this earlier, actually, the needs more from probably intimacy are going to be higher up, where the need for certainty and reliability and significance maybe is going to be slightly higher for the woman. Maybe not significance, but being there. So think of like Neanderthal brain. He needs to feel significant and loved and touched and has have that. And she needs to feel cared for. She needs to know that she's cared for. She needs to know that certainty. Think of I often say this to guys where they struggle and like, she does my head in, and I'm like going, well, okay, but understand that she's going to think totally different to you because she's a woman. Women have been preyed upon, raped, murdered, abducted, God knows what, throughout the ages, and that's still wired into their mind. Where you ask most men, when was the last time you were in genuine fear of your life? Most men would probably go, I don't know, 3 years ago I was on the motorway or freeway, or I don't know, it was 10 years ago. Most women will tell you there was an experience maybe in the last month. I've seen this in a Robin seminar. And so they're wired for survival much more than we are. So you being dependable and you needing that certainty is probably much higher than you realize. Much, much higher. And you think meeting the needs by just coming in with the money and throwing it into the door and then going out again is going to make her feel fabulous. Yes, that's a certain component of it, but you have to listen. And I've often said this before, you've got to listen and give presence to a woman, because that's what other women do for women. They expect the man to do that. But as a man, you've got to learn to do that. And it's hard because the man might be like, oh my God, I've got this to do and that to do and the other. And she wants me to be present and to just give her my time.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Because that's what she thinks is needed in that moment.
Yep. And so when there's conflict, it's good to have this kind of checklist going in your head. Words that aren't attacking. And if you make a mistake and you start to attack someone, you're so bad because of this. I can't believe you. You were so right. When you start to use those attacking words, just have the other spouse, hey, we agreed not to attack, right? This is where, like, ahead of time, you have an agreement that we're not going to attack each other when we're having conflict, right? And I don't like the word fighting, because fighting is just, I assume you're out and, behind the bar, like literally duking it out, right? We're dealing with conflict. We're dealing with things that we don't see eye to eye on. That's all it is. It's just dealing with conflict. And conflict is a natural way of life. If you're not dealing with conflict, then someone's probably biting their tongue, right? And so, hey, we have an agreement that when we deal with conflict, we're not going to use attacking words. Your spouse uses attacking words. Hey, let's just do a rewind. We're going to create a fight here. Let's try it again. Just take out all of that. Like, hit the pause button and literally do a rewind in the conversation. Let that person recover. I think what people do is they start holding them account in the moment, and they don't allow a recovery. I think that's really big. And then if they're bringing up meta fights, you didn't do the trash. Well, you didn't do it last week, in 2 weeks, and 3 weeks. Okay, that makes sense, but because it connects directly to the situation. But let's just keep it on the actual issue now. Let's not continue to bring last month in. Let's just focus on the actual issue, because if we fix that, then hopefully we can, everything else moving forward will be nuked, right? And so we try to keep it on the actual issue and then allow the pause button to be hit and let your spouse do a rewind and fix it in the moment. That is so key. That requires you not needing to be right, because it's easy to be like, my spouse is wrong. Look, she's wrong. I'm going to put her under a microscope. Boom, boom, boom. You're so bad. It's like, no, 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 no. That's ego. Step back, rewind, pause. Let's do a little rewind, because we're outcome focused, right? We want the outcome, right? Peace, harmony, love, our needs met, versus needing to be right. And that's where the right and the outcome, I think, are two different things. You want a win-win, not a win-lose.
Win-win, absolutely, all the time. A win-lose is a war.
It's war. And that's where the ego comes in. You did this. How dare you? Mm-hmm. That's win-lose. Mm-hmm. That's the ego. That's in your head, not in your heart.
And if you keep coming from that place, even if you do win, you'll never have peace. It just won't work. Nope. You're going to have more peace by coming from your heart and knowing that you've been magnanimous enough, courageous enough, heroic enough to be vulnerable enough to be able to come in your heart, and to be able to be that much of a magician that you've literally melted it with love. I love that phrase, actually. Sort of, I remember reading it a while ago. It was like, melt everything with love. Melt it with love. Yeah. One of the problems is there's a lack of love here. There's a lack of cohesion. And love is a fantastic thing. It's like, when think about those couples that have the fights, and then, it's make up or break up, and then they have the big, and then they come back together, and it's those are very destructive relationships. But when they do come back together, they're communicating more from here. Yeah. If you can learn something from that each and every time. But so it's as best as possible coming from your outcome. And that is, what is your outcome? Think of what your outcome is.
What do you want to have happen?
Wish. I used wish, but yeah, absolutely. So what's your outcome?
And what are the rules of engagement? What are the rules of engagement? We agree that we're not going to attack. We agree that we're not going to scream and swear. We agree that we're not going to be physical. We agree that if we get flooded, we're going to step away, right? This is the rules of engagement. It's like, we can play baseball or we can play soccer because we agree upon the rules, right?
Okay.
It's not 2 strikes and you're out, but 4 strikes and I'm out, right? You get 1 run, I start -1 run. We have an agreement of these are the rules. This is how it works. That way we can be on the same footing. And if you screw up, just, hey, I made a mistake. Apologize for breaking the rule. Let's focus on getting back into it now. Because in the end, we're outcome driven, not, ego driven. You did this, haha, you're wrong, I'm better than you, right? So I think that's an important component.
I think I like that you went into using the word I'm sorry, and I think I said that at the beginning of the conversation, which was Ho'oponopono, which is just 4 things, which is I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you for telling me, and thank you for bringing it to my awareness and my attention, and maybe if so, I love you. Mm-hmm. It's totally. It's because then it's easier to then forgive. It's easier then to accept, even, beyond forgiveness is just acceptance, because here's another individual who's struggling through life. They're trying to make their way through life. But if we're going to master that, in relationships, it's knowing that love is more powerful than fear, and love will unite and bring things together. So coming more from your heart, coming more from truth, coming from these 40,000 neurons that desperately wish to be heard and communicated. That's very, very powerful. And if you haven't done that enough in your own life, think about it. Just let that sort of marinate in your mind a little bit, and test it, you try it in as much as like trying it, for a small experience. But it's very, very, very healing for the other person and you.
I agree. Now, where does the NLP come in? So NLP stands for Neuro-Linguistic Programming. So we talked about where EFT plugs in to kind of help with the triggering reactions. Yep. But where does the NLP come in? How do you use it?
We've been doing it. I mean, NLP is very outcome focused, and we've been using language. So, wish, love, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, and I love you. A lot of that is in there. Pattern interrupts, such as taking yourself away from when you're majorly stressed, coming from a different perspective. Don't question someone's intention. Communicate as clearly as you can. Understand language. So if you're saying sort of no attack words, well, language isn't attacking. There's no point attacking. That's not coming from your heart, isn't it? When you're attacking, so it encompasses all of it, and we've probably gone into territory within it that we haven't even realized, sort of, when we're thinking about what it is that we do. I think NLP, I studied that in 2006, and it's a part of my makeup now that I don't even know what it is anymore. Sort of, it just becomes a new way of communicating and a new way of sensing the world. Beliefs are generalizations, distortions, and deletions. So if we're thinking about what our partner is doing and how they're acting, think about how much of that, or your statement regarding them, can be a generalization. Think about, let's say, we were talking about the trash being taken out. Think about distortion. So, it's that one thing and hasn't been done, and then you're distorting it. And then what's it? Generalization, distortion, deletion. So when we're in those places and we get stressed, we're deleting all of the other really good things that have actually happened. And we're coming just to focusing on that one distorted bad behavior, or the words that they said, or how they said it. And we get lost in that moment. And how we can find ourselves is within all of these tools that we've been talking about. I think there's a lot in there for most people to get.
What's one simple exercise someone at home, when having any kind of relationship stress, what's one simple NLP exercise that would help them?
I knew you were going to ask me something like that.
So I'm going to answer mine first, and I want you to do yours. The first thing is pause, and just visualize a picture of what you want the outcome to be. Whatever is happening, just take a deep breath and visualize the outcome. Right. I also say, did my spouse have to be a mind reader to do this? And how can I make sure we're on the same page? But visualize that outcome. Visualize it, picture it, because that takes you out of your head of needing to be right, needing to make them wrong, needing to browbeat them, needing to attack them. Visualize what that outcome looks like. And then using language like wish, right? I wish to have this, is key. It takes you out of the head into the heart, away from the ego. And it keeps you focused on the outcome, because most people, they fight for the sense of being right, and they forget what they actually want as an outcome.
I think that's really good. I would add it also into, when you were visualizing how it was, go into the other two things as well, which are your kinesthetics. So that's how you imagine it would now feel. What is it that you wish to now feel with this partner? And go to that place of like, well, this is how I wish for it to be. I can see it, but I can also feel it. And then the third one is the auditory. What is it that you're saying? Because it's not just what's being said, it's how it's being said. Thinking about language is very, very powerful and destructive at the same. It's entwined. So just having that sense. I think a big one is heart, but it's a great one to just take a deep breath into your heart. Take a deep breath into your heart. Release and let go. Here we are again, fighting. Mary and me fighting again. This is crazy. Right. What is this about? I'm not going to question her intention. She's not trying to deliberately make me feel bad. What is this? What is actually happening? What is it that I deeply wish? I wish to be close to Mary. I wish to be back in this place where we used to embrace each other more, and we used to be closer. That's what I wish. I can hear the words coming from her, which is, she's proud of me, or she loves me, or she's really happy to be with me. And I'm saying, you know what? I used to say these kind words to her when we first were connected. Maybe I need to leave little notes. maybe actually words are something that's missing in her life. Maybe I need to communicate that. What's her primary five? What is her primary love language out of the 5 love languages?
What need is she
Coming,
not getting met? What needs are she's not getting met?
yeah, that's a brilliant one. And what you're doing effectively now is not questioning why she said it and why you feel like you do. It's more about what is it that I can do in order to create the outcome that I wish to experience. So you're using your mind rather than have your mind use you, which is pure NLP.
When you come at it from the glass is half empty, they're doing this, and you're ascribing intent to everything. This is where I hear like a lot of, and again, some of these descriptions, these terms may be correct, but a lot of times it's the other person going into glass is half empty every time. He's a narcissist. She's a narcissist. She's a sociopath. He's toxic. And it's like, well, is that the truth? How do we truly know that is real? And is it potentially possible that I am glass is half empty and ascribing intent to everything where maybe that intent is not there? Because I doubt your partner is saying, yes, that is my intent. I most of the time it's, no, that's not what I meant by that. I meant this. Oh, okay. And so it's very easy to use these kind of language to, I look at it as it's you're writing off the person. Because if I write them off, then I don't have to try. I don't have to do my part to meet in the middle. And so it takes away their effort now. I can wash my hands of you.
Yeah.
Because now I don't have to try, because I can just label you this thing versus I can just, I'm going to do glasses half full. I'm going to assume the best in you, because as Robin says, anytime you assume the best in someone, they'll never get mad at you afterwards for doing it. Never. But if you do the opposite, they definitely will.
Yeah. Yeah. And you take away accountability when you do that. It's just like, well, what else did I learn about relationships? It was like, it's not 50-50, it's 100-100. And I remember thinking, okay, Bingo. That's interesting.
Bingo.
So you've got to put in 100. If you're not putting in 100, well, this is why you're not getting, your outcome. And what some people can be, they can go, well, I'm putting in 60 and I'm not going to put in any more than 60 because they don't put in more than 60. You've got to think about it together, and you've got to think, what is the team? What is it that you're working towards? It can be. I've said with couples sometimes, and I say, right, what have you got a photograph of when you felt really, when you first met, or when you felt really connected, and put that on your fridge, put that in the lounge, in the living room, put it somewhere where it's the focus of like this encapsulates, okay, it's visual, but it will take you back to the time of how you felt and the words that were said. And that's what you are in a marriage, to marry two things together, two people together. That's when this was great. And that's what you get back to. When you were at the beginning of a relationship, you weren't thinking about, oh, well, I'm only going to put in 80, because she's only putting in 80, or be less numbers when we have issues. But in order to be able to get back to that place, you've both got to think about what was the strategy to begin with. There was an unconscious strategy that you weren't even aware of because you were so preoccupied with the dopamine hits that were coming left, right, and center because it was all fabulous. Most relationships don't really have the challenges until probably the first sort of 3 or 4 months. Then I think there's probably a 6-month period, and then there's a year period. Oh, that was what I was going to say as well. From a book called His Needs, Her Needs. I remember him saying, when you first get together with a partner, it's like that person fills up an unconscious bank account. And so we can go, right, Sarah, when I think of Sarah now, the bank, every time I see Sarah, it's just the bank account just goes bigger and bigger and bigger. It's just getting, abundant. It's fabulous. And then all of a sudden, one day, Sarah does something. She says something or does something. And as a result of that, you have a little trauma. Something's not, it's not Disney anymore. Something's cropped up in reality. And as a result of that, a deposit comes out from that bank account. So let's say she'd built up a credit point of 2,500. she does something and it's really bad, and you don't know. I kind of come up with something like you'd arrange to go on a date night and whatever, and she says, "Oh, I can't make it. My best friend Taylor says, she needs me, and I need to go and see her." And you feel hurt by that. It's like, well, I'm not as significant as Taylor. Oh no, but she really needs me, and you might be going, well, I really needed you, but just by doing that, she takes out 200 credits. So now it's 2,300. Still pretty good, but she's now starting to withdraw from the account. And he says, really what happens is when relationships break down, we get to that point where there's literally nothing left in the account, or you are overdrawn and you're kind of questioning why you're still with this partner. So all of these things that we're suggesting will then start building credits back up into the account. And so through all of the communicating wishes, any of the things that we do, we're putting money into, or we're making deposits. Any of the accusations and all the other stuff, we're taking further out of the account. How are you going to get to that abundant place, that really good place, by focusing on your withdrawals all the time? You've got to both be thinking about putting things in, because that's what happens at the beginning of the relationship. It's like the person can't do no wrong, almost.
Can't do it wrong, yeah.
Or if they do wrong in the early days, you're like, red flag, I'm out of here. Sort of like, if they're doing that at this stage.
Yeah, if it's a repeating pattern and there's no openness to talk, then it's like, okay, great. That's a red flag, you jump. But I agree. And a lot of times the deeper into relationship you get, especially as you bring kids, you got to schedule stuff. And kind of the
You've
Disney,
taught me that quite a lot. Yep.
The Disney spontaneity assumption is, oh, everything should just happen. It should just be spontaneous, and it should just happen randomly and just when you need it. And a lot of times that's not going to happen. And so
I can say from 18.5 years of coaching that the relationships that are really good, that often married to their best friend and things like that, are scheduled. It doesn't just happen. It's like anything in life. You schedule your health, you schedule things for your business, you begin to schedule things for your relationship. And that might be a bit of a downer for people who think about, the Disney-esque things, but how many celebrities who live in that kind of fantasy world really end up having those wonderful relationships? I think it takes a maturity to understand that actually this fantasy thing that we're sold, actually you can build, but it is not just fantasy and it's just automatically going to happen. You have to work for it, but the rewards from it are huge.
And then you can say to yourself too, it's like, hey, once a week, I'm going to do something that totally catches my spouse off guards. I'm going to just show up home with a Starbucks coffee or some flowers, or I'm going to just have breakfast made when they come downstairs. Like just something that's totally random. And I think that's good too, where you say it once a week, once every 2 weeks, whatever that makes sense to you based on your schedule, and just, throw them a curveball, a nice curveball.
So I'm going to share this one with you. So one guy, after I was coaching them, and he learned that words of affirmation were really important. They weren't so important to him. They were about third on the list. And I kind of sort of said, look, you need to be doing this. I said, could you do this and suspend your own needs and just think about meeting her needs? And as opposed to him going and telling her, which didn't feel quite authentic and real and genuine, because probably there was some trauma in his own childhood where he wasn't told, we love you and you're special and, all those things. What he started to do was randomly write words about her around the home. And so think of the variety. So she's going to open a book, a novel that she's reading, and then she opens it up and he's just written in there, like, I think you're the most beautiful woman in the world. And she's just like, he's never done things like this before, or whatever. Or he'd go like on the shopping list, like in the kitchen. So it's like, onions, celery, I love you. What? Just various things like that. Because if you think about it, it's just getting inventive. And he was so grateful. He was like going, I can't, he goes, he was actually finally having sex again with his wife. So he really was very, very happy. And he was just going, I can't believe that something like this he goes, I think I'm just going to always do this. So he'd like do things like he'd write little notes and put it under her headrest, like the sun visor, like when she came down. So it would like, she just puts it down and it's just like, I chose right when I married you. Just something like that. And it's just like, what is that going to do to your spouse? Like, if you think of like, think about significance, boom, 10. Think about variety, boom, 10. Think about certainty, boom, 10. Love connection, boom, 10. So we've found primary love language, words. She really needs these words. He doesn't feel he can necessarily communicate them, but he does feel them. He said, well, I do really love her. But, it just doesn't mean a lot to me just by saying I love you. But that suddenly put a huge amount of romance back into sort of this
Yep.
relationship. And then I can't remember what his needs were. I haven't seen him for 5-6 years. But she was then willing to go around to meet more of his needs. Why? Because she felt full up. It was like the more that he made her full up, the more that she naturally wished to then give back. Because we will. If anybody in the world makes you feel full up, you're overjoyed with love and feel deeply in your heart. You're like, hey, I wish to give back.
Yeah.
What is it that I need to do to help you? What are your wishes?
Yeah. And I think I look at most therapists and marriage family counselors today, they're, and again, just my experience interacting with people, they're more about taking that person, seeing them, and making that person feel right. So if the woman or the man seeing them, you're right, they're wrong. But then what do you do about it? Right? Because I guarantee you that person's going to have a different take on it. And if the therapist wasn't talking to both at the same time, then obviously, there's going to be two stories that only one's being heard. But then what do we wish? What do we want the outcome to be? Because surely it's not just being right. Right. Surely
Yes.
it's not just that. But I find most therapists are more about just massaging the other person's ego. And then now what? And so are we left with just divorce or ending? Is that where we're at right now? Is that the only option? Or are there other tools and other options in our hearts that we can utilize?
Hence the difference between therapy and coaching.
Yes.
And I did qualify
Yes.
as a therapist early on. And that often, it is just, how do you feel? And then you're just going to spend an hour talking about how you feel and sort of like, and hopefully that will make you feel a little bit better, and it will to a certain degree, but it's not going to change the situation. So coaching and mentoring is more about outcome and solution focused, and I was much more drawn to
then
that
a lot of
all
times,
the time.
and then a lot of times you're just communicating your glass is half empty assumptions as well. Where and so then but these are just glass half empty assumptions right now. They're not glass half full, or even maybe full on reality. But sometimes it could be. But either way, what do you want? Okay, great. Now, what are the skills we need to plug in to help you get what you want? Or maybe, hey, you guys are very clear. There's 4 needs you guys need together, and you guys aren't willing to work on it. All right, then maybe that's a reset then.
I think that just evaded me. I was going to have a little there was something that popped in my head then. You'll have to ask me another question. It might come back to me.
So in the end, I think the ultimate decision needs to be on what do you want? What do you want? Focus on what you want, not on who's right. In some situations,
and go deeper into want, in as much as
yes.
go deeper into want and call it a wish.
Yeah, but in the end, there may be a right or wrong person in certain situations. Some are cut and dry. Hey, you're 30 minutes late. Okay, right. That's pretty cut and dry, right? We agreed upon this, and here's the time, and you're 30, right? But a lot of times they're not. But then what is it do you want? Because do you want to browbeat that person for being late, and then the date night's canceled and sour because everyone's mad? Or do we want to now have a good night moving forward? Right? But we maybe talk about being better next time, right? And so it's like, what do you want?
And what do you wish?
Yep. Yes. Wish, want. Yep. Wish is better. Comes from a higher place. Yep.
But it makes sense when we talk about what it is that we want. People want to have a better relationship. They want to get back to the place where they were when they first met the other partner. It's understandable, but I will highly encourage everybody to do it. In fact, in my coaching practice, I often just interrupt people when they're just saying want, because I just go wish.
Yep.
And I've done it. It's really challenging because I've had to do it with myself. And every now and again, it will just pop out of my own consciousness. But for 8 years, I've been going into that place. What else were we doing?
So just like here's the rules of engagement for me. Number 1, focus on the needs that only you can meet, right? Food, sleep, hydration, movement, what makes you happy. And then only then you can focus on the needs, right? The 6 human needs, the big 4, which are going to be significance, connection, love, variety, stability. Those are the big 4 that most relationships are missing. Then contribution and growth come after that. But focus on how you can meet each other's needs and what your wish is. But work on the foundational needs first. Have an agreed kind of rules of engagement, how we play the game. No yelling, no swearing, no breaking stuff. Assume glass is half full, no attacking words. When things escalate, just time out. Let's just come back and work on it. And then focus on the outcome. Focus on the outcome, what you want, not about being right. What the outcome is, what you want, what you wish. That's a good starting point, I think. I think most people, they're on autopilot from what their parents did. Most people don't get a chance to see under the hood of other people in their lives, as relationships, how they interact. So they only have what their parents did. And it's a lot of times it's subconscious too. It's not even, it's just there.
And friends, and so the guys can go sort of like, every now, you really happy, or the women can meet up and go, and they can all have a moan about their men. So,
and that's the word. Oh, that's one other thing. I tell people, do not vent to other people in your life about your partner, because what happens is this: when things are good, people don't want to communicate that because they feel like they're rubbing it in their face, in their friends' faces. But then when things go bad, then they feel like all their friend hears is the bad stuff. And so then your friend thinks your spouse is just terrible. But in the end, you just haven't communicated the good stuff because it was good. I didn't want to rub it in their face. Maybe they have some issues. But then when it's bad, everyone rubs it in. And then the person only sees this negative thing. And then when you interact in the real world together, they just have all this negative energy towards your spouse. And that's not good either.
So find people that actually... It's like this is something from NLP, which is just find somebody who's got the outcome that you're after. What's the outcome? Because there's a recipe to it. Think of it. Always remember back the chocolate cake thing. Sort of, if someone's making a chocolate cake and it's fabulous, most likely if they give you the recipe, even if you're really bad at cooking, you're going to get somewhere close if you follow it,
Bingo.
rule for rule.
Bingo.
So it's the same with a relationship. So find somebody. And I told Justin this, because I love cars. So I met this guy, David. Hi, David. I'm giving you a shout out. He's 77 years old. And he was just like, I went, David and Teresa, that's all I'm saying. So he would just talk about Teresa's wonderful. And I'd hear them on the phone. I got an invite because I went down to the south of England to a car show. And he said, come down, come and stay. And it was like, so I stayed. She made a beautiful lasagna. And I was asking them about their relationship. And it was fabulous just to sort of hear this couple talking about how they make it work. Because how many times will you find people who just go, doesn't work. Well, hang on. Fair enough. But it works over here. I'd really be interested to find out how it works. Another thing in relation to my car, where I store my car, she sadly died, his former partner. But they used to hold hands like when they used to brush their teeth, like in the bathroom, and they were in their 50s. They just like, it was just something like that you just think, wow, they didn't argue, they didn't they talked through problems, they talked through things. And you will find, and somebody else who has got married, they're in their first 3 years of marriage or so, but he loves her. She makes him laugh, and they talk through things. So you will find people who will have the outcome that you wish, whatever that is. If it is your health, then, immerse yourself around people who are moving towards health. It's the same with money. It's the same with relationships. You're going to unconsciously begin to download the strategies and recipes in order to create that. So if it's not a chocolate cake we're after a really great, happy, loving marriage. There's a recipe involved here. If you follow these things, you're going to be more than likely closer to that outcome than someone who around people are going, oh, well, doesn't happen. Oh, he's a man. Oh, he'll never do it. He's a man. Oh, she's a woman. What women are like. And it's like, well, what you reckon? What's the chance of manifesting a fantastic relationship around sort of that kind of consciousness, around other people who've got it?
It's a victim language, and it takes away accountability. And And you still have to communicate. You still have to meet in the middle and find needs. You still have to, get clear on what your wish is, and vice versa.
Beliefs as well. It inspires you. If you believe it's possible, then it's like with everything, you're halfway there. Halfway there. If you don't believe it's
Well,
possible, what's that Henry Ford quote? If you believe you can or you can't, whether you
either way,
believe
you're
you
right.
can or you can't,
Hmm.
you're right.
Yeah,
So you've got to have that belief. So one of the things we did say earlier was take time, visualize it how you wish it to be, feel how you wish it to be. Literally you're hypnotizing yourself by doing it, and hear how you wish it to be. Go to that outcome.
I agree.
We've
I
covered a
think it's
lot of
awesome.
stuff here. I think we're gonna. I think we might have saved a few marriages in this last hour.
I hope so. I mean, I look at the foundational things. I think the biggest thing out of the gate is meet the needs that only you can meet first, because you're going to be healthier, happier, more biochemically balanced first.
Yeah,
And it's like, the way I look at it is, you not meeting your own personal needs is like pulling an all nighter and then try to have an in-depth conversation with your spouse the next day. You won't have the capacity, the physiology, the biochemistry to do it. So start there. Start there. I find lots of women, you know, 50, 60, 70 and up. These are the society back then was kind of in a way of what you live for your family, you live for your kids, and that means
yeah.
all
Things
of
have
their
changed,
needs got
haven't they?
like way to the back burner. But now today it's almost the other way, where all about you, all about you, all about you, forget everyone else. So there's this happy medium in the middle,
There
right? And that's,
is.
I think, that's what we're trying to put our focus on, is what's that middle need, what's that middle negotiation.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, but I think people did stay together, but they wouldn't necessarily be happy. But they would sense that they were, just the fact that they're still together and there is another person, they would be happy. There were exceptions to that, of course, all the
Hmm.
time. I think my grandparents were very lucky. They were married for well over 60 years and they enjoyed walking. They went on a walking holiday to Wales, or no, the Lake District, when on their honeymoon. And they didn't argue. They got on very well. But I don't know what their marriage was really like. Wouldn't have known. So,
And
but we've
mhm.
shifted so much, and I think that we live in a society where it's, you can swipe for your next partner, but then if you get so far in, just swipe, just keep going, keep going, keep going.
Yeah,
I think there's a lot to be said for continuing to talk, just continuing to talk, because
and
there's a
it's
great possibility that you will just manifest the same challenges in your next relationship. I mean, obviously, there's exceptions to that.
yeah, it's
Um,
so easy when you have 30 people sitting in your DMs just to be like, all right, yeah, nope, there's some conflict here. I'm gonna go answer that DM and move on to the next. And that's just, that monkey branching mindset. You're just rinse, repeating. And I know, Daniel, your famous quote, I'll make the PG version of it here, but it's a great quote. And I think it applies to relationships, is the crap we deal with in our lives today is the manure for tomorrow, for growth, understanding, and a better life tomorrow. And that happens even in relationship with conflict. You get to know a
everything.
deeper part of yourself, 100%.
Everything. We grow through the challenges. We really do. And if you can stick with that within your own relationship, I've heard it many times, and I've worked with enough clients and couples where they do work through it enough that they do begin a new chapter, and something flourishes from that. So it's like there's new germination within that. So and there's an awareness of, I'm not going to do that anymore. I used to do that. I used to have a go at him. I used to put him down. Do you know what? I can't do that anymore. That's old school now, because that doesn't get me what I wish. So he needs to be more significant. He needs to be loved more. He needs to be appreciated, and I need to take accountability for that. Because if I make this guy feel more loved and special, and yeah, I'm going to get my needs met. But I've got to stop thinking about getting my needs met. Paradoxically, I love that word, paradox. And it is very much with anything. If you're trying to get what you want by grabbing and forcing and pushing and shoving and accusing, and you will never get it. You'll never
I
get it.
agree.
But you're more than likely going to attract it. So it will actually paradoxically come to you by changing you. It's this you component. And that is the dynamic. So taking 100% accountability for the you part of it. And then
Love
that
it.
leads the other person to potentially take accountability for them too.
I
So
agree.
yeah,
Well, hey Daniel, I think you got the record for our longest podcast
I
ever.
was going to
So we've been
say,
live for
what
just under 2 hours here. We're at like an
was
hour
it?
50. So
2 hours? Was it
almost
two
2 hours,
hours?
hour 50. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
we're
So
creaming it. We're creaming it,
okay,
man. Well,
okay.
hey, if anyone enjoys this podcast, put your comments down below. Let us know what you think. If you want to reach out to Daniel, a lot of the principles and everything we talked about are going to be things that he works with and he addresses and has lots of different techniques to help. So there'll be a link if you want to reach out for a complimentary chat to see if you're a good fit. We are here to help you out, guys, out. And Daniel sees patients worldwide. So if you want that support, it's there. Put your comments down below. I'd love to see it, and we'll be responding. Daniel, excellent chatting with you. Any last words that you want to leave us with?
Good luck, everybody. Come from here, less from here.
Focus on what
Pleasure,
you want,
pleasure.
what
Wish.
you wish. Wish. Love it. Thanks, Daniel. Take care.